What is an action hub and why are Music Declares Emergency selling t-shirts to fund them? Well, in this episode of the Drown in Sound podcast, I sit down not just with one of the representatives of Music Declares Emergency, but also the front person of the absolutely brilliant PVA, three-piece band from London whose debut album Blush was nominated for our alternative to the Mercury Prize, the Neptune Music Prize. And they have just released an absolutely extraordinary new album called No More Like This. And I talked to Ella Harris, who wears both hats. She's the Music Declares emergency person and also the front person of PVA. So we talk a little bit about that new record, which came out a couple of weeks ago, January 23rd, 2026, depending when you're listening to that. That might be many months ago. Hopefully it was a few days ago. And in this episode, we cover everything from the climate crisis to their new campaign, Hope Over Fear. We also talk about speaking songs because Ella's band PVA, she kind of speaks. And to go with this podcast, which we make in partnership with Cobuzz, you can hear a very special playlist, and it's a couple of hours long, of songs I absolutely love that are a bit more spoken than sung. And some of them are almost rapped. There is some absolutely extraordinary things on there, including Chloe Savani speaking over a beautiful Soulwax track. There's some Latigra. There's a track that Kate Jackson from the Long Blondes did, which I absolutely adored. So yeah, there's lots on there. So if you head to drowningsound.org/playlists, you can not only get a free 30-day trial to the Ethical Music Streaming Service, but you can also find the link to that playlist and a companion playlist, which you put together with every episode of this podcast. And as is the rule, I must now say it's time to get into this. This is our interview with Ella Harris from PVA and Music Declares Emergency. I'll catch up at the end with a few thoughts. So let's begin, Ella. Could you introduce yourself and the various different hats you wear to all of our audience?
My name's Ella. I'm a musician and singer in the band PVA. I'm a visual artist and kind of creative director, trying to build that hat a little bit in the next few years. And I'm the campaigns manager at Music Declares Emergency and have been in that position for the last year of my life. I'm really enjoying it and looking forward to continuing on.
So at the time we're talking, your second album is about to drop as PVA.
Yeah. And our single's literally just dropped. We've had a single drop
while I'm sitting here.
While we're sitting here. So I'm sure my phone's doing lots of things right now, but I'm not going to look at it for a
while. So I'll talk a little bit about both of the kind of your music projects and what you do at Music Declares Emergency, because I think that for the average music fan who listens to this and the musicians who tune in and people in the industry, I think there's an understanding of you make amazing No Music on a Dead Planet merch and you got the hashtag trending when you had to use it to get on the main stage, screens at Reading, and you kind of have done all these great projects. But what at its essence does Music Declares Emergency do? Because it's more than just merch.
Yeah, and this is one thing I like to build into our narratives. I think we do merch and we have the kind of No Music on a Dead Planet and more recently the Hope Over Fear campaign t-shirts, and I think merch is a really important part of music fandom, and we really believe it can be done differently and more sustainably. So we work with T-Mill to it's print on demand, and it's in a reusable, a factory powered by renewables, and it's a circular model and all of this stuff. And we really believe in that. But I think people who maybe see it just as this kind of merch awareness campaign, a campaign of music fandom, showing your beliefs on your chest, that's one thing. We see that as the entry point.
I mean, it's a bit like the Ramones. Some people might think they're actually a band.
Yeah, exactly. Rihanna's Red Album.
Yeah.
But that's an entry point. But it's at the heart of what we believe, because music fandom, music as a collective experience, is such an important tool for one connecting emotionally to other people, and also to building communities and sustainable community infrastructure. And so a lot of our work, we work in the industry. We're sort of building partnerships within the industry, within the live circuit, trying to promote, engage, and advocate for sustainable infrastructure and
even simple things like a rider, which you can print out
absolutely
and kind of go,
absolutely,
please don't put plastic bottles on our ride.
Yeah. And there's so many organizations working in parallel to what we're doing, and there's so much interesting work that's out there at the moment. Our main kind of focus and mission statement in 2026 is sort of engaging artists, industry and fans through building the No Music on a Dead Planet movement in real life through action hubs in grassroots venues. This is primarily because, I think there's a big apathy at the moment, a disconnect. The digital world is really pulling people maybe away from empathetic understanding. And I also think, this is getting a little bit deep, but I think to be a music fan is an empathetic practice because
we can go deep. This is what class is.
Yeah. But this is a real thing, I believe. And whenever I meet someone who's really connected to music, who for example, Quake Bass, we produced our album with, I would see him as he just channels music through him. It's like a magical thing. And we'll go into him later because I have lots to say about how wonderful he is. But, he's such an empathetic and political person as well. And I think it's really, people who listen to music and hear someone feeling so evocatively, I don't know how that can't make you empathetic if you connect to that, and if that makes you feel something. That is an empathetic relationship between an artist and a fan. And so we're using that kind of as a core idea because I think music is an emotional tool to connect people. It's long cited that is a truth, and it's a really amazing tool to engage people with political understanding. But we have to make those connections in real life as well. And that's why live music is such an amazing experience. And that's why there's lots of viral moments now at live shows, artists advocating for, marginalized groups or against genocide or all of these things. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build opportunities for people to build these communities in real life, alongside grassroots organizations who are already established in those areas, not kind of, working together, working stronger.
So what would someone do at an action hub? Because I know that the new merch you've got, the Hope Over Fear, which I was one of your models on Instagram.
Yes, yeah.
And you've got The World is...
Another world
is possible. And what was yours?
Our future, our fight. So,
and the money from those is going to go towards creating these action hubs.
Yeah.
What would one of those look like?
Yeah, so we're working on the kind of rollout and strategy development of the action hubs, but we're working with Music Venue Trust in partnership to identify grassroots venues that are already established pillars of community, which grassroots venues are, and they're at risk of shutting down. So many are already shutting down. So many are struggling with landlords, rising prices, but they're really important.
And energy bills, which is very relevant to...
Very, very relevant. And we've got some, interesting ideas around that as well, alongside Music Venue Trust. But, it's often these venues don't have the capacity to implement things like let's get off the grid and, own our power with solar panels, for example, or let's make our venue more accessible by installing a disabled bathroom and a wheelchair user ramp to get into the venue. They don't have the capacity or the funds.
I mean, one of the things about solar that really surprised me, I worked with Max Richter for a while, and they put back into the grid. So it's not even like they're off the grid. They're a contributor to it.
Yeah.
It's imagine if the grassroots venue was powering the local primary schools and all sorts of other things.
That's such a beautiful idea, isn't it? It's such an amazing idea. And I think it's so important to, build into storytelling for climate action, for direct action, these spaces that are already established. We're not trying to invent a space. We have these spaces that already kind of do that job. They bring people together. I met all of my friends pretty much at grassroots venues between the ages of 16 to 25 at gigs, at celebrations. But it would be amazing if one day there was like a workshop there, a skill share.
Yeah.
Imagine if you went during the day. Like, what we want to do is we want to go to festivals and recruit people to join these action hubs in their local area. They come and spend time at their venue, and maybe meet people across generations, genres, divides, who knows? And we're bringing in artists to potentially host skill shares, production workshops, and hopefully people can join these action hubs and build onto their CV, get into the music industry. And we have more people in the music industry who are politically minded, sustainably minded. That's our vision for it. And it's an ambitious vision, but I think there's a tangible energy, and it shows how many artists got involved in the campaign compared to in previous artist advocacy campaigns. It was really uplifting to see how many people got involved and wanted to be a part of building community through grassroots venues. I think it's really of the moment.
You're getting quite quickly towards the target as well, from what I saw. Like, the merch is selling.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks really cool. Is it by Anthony
Burrell? Yeah, we worked with him. I wanted to build some new designs into 2026 and some more hopeful designs as well. I love No Music on a Dead Planet is iconic, and it's been seen by millions, I think, of people.
Often seen on the videos on this podcast because I'm often wearing it. I decided not to today because I thought it's a bit like when you wear a band's t-shirt to their show.
Yeah, I've got so many now because I always get a little sample of a new design, and I just got like a bit of my wardrobe. That's which No Music on a Dead Planet t-shirt am I going to wear today? But yeah, I think it's nice to bring in some hopeful messaging, and it aligns with our mission statement for 2026. But hope over fear. Hope is something you can do and you can build in yourself and build in your community. Another world is possible is reimagining a future, and actually creativity as a tool for that. Reimagination, imagining something that doesn't feel currently tangible, takes creativity and takes collective creativity, and that's a really important thing. And also our future, our fight, seeing it as this is all of our futures, generations over, and all of that. So I think those are things that everyone's feeling, and you see it. So many people are building in these kind of in real life structures. Like, we're not the only ones doing action hubs at all. Like Hope Over Hay and Earth Sonic, and there's loads of amazing kind of organizations who are sort of
and even things like Macmillan, where they just like bring people together for. I'm slightly jealous of Old Lady sometimes. They have all these amazing events organized throughout the week. That's like lunchtime drop-in type of things. I'm like, why can't there be stuff like, I don't think I've ever seen like on the listings on a venue like board games at midday.
Absolutely.
You do when I've been on tour, you do turn up to some venues and there's like some locals that pop in, like they're sort of hanging out in the venues, but a lot of venues are closed until the doors open, and it's they are community spaces, aren't they? And it's like,
talking to venues, I think there's also it would be good for them as well, because it makes them more fundable as well if they can demonstrate that community impact is happening within their venues. And that's one thing Music Venue Trust flagged to us, is actually this, if we got our community to, using the action hubs to for example, making the venue more accessible, making the venue more sustainable, that's great for the venues, and that helps them sustain, and that helps them bring more people in. So I think it's sort of this like reciprocal model as well, and that's why there's a lot of focus, I think, across our I was about to say scene, that's my music head on, but like across like all the different organizations working in this space. It's a real like a recognition and a turn to focus, I think. And also, as an artist myself, I think it's sometimes hard because artists can feel commodified. If it's really beneficial for artists to go on socials and share their voice and their values, and it really influences a lot of their music fans. But sometimes when that is something that maybe is just the only thing that is being used for charity outreach, I think it can maybe feel a bit like, and you're getting so many different charities reaching out to you. Yeah. It's potentially it might feel like a commodification. I think sometimes for me it feels like a commodification, and you want to feel like you can use your creative abilities and your energy, like this kinetic energy, to actually like make some impact. We all do. So I think hopefully we'll be able to offer artists, you know, that kind of space, like even if it's going into their local action hub and hosting something, or, you know, passing down some wisdom. Like there's so much random stuff in music and activism that you only learn through doing. Like that no one could write a guide, I don't think, about how to kind of get involved in grassroots organizing or in music, and it's sort of gatekept sometimes. And it's like, if that information was more readily accessible, there'd be more people getting into that stuff.
I mean, even something as little as, how do the lights work at a gig?
Yeah.
Like there's loads of people that go to gigs all the time. They've
what
never
is PRS?
Yeah.
Like, what is PRS? I didn't even know what publishing was until like we were talking about sync, and I was just like, what is this? I still don't really. And that's such a big part of income now. And that's a whole conversation about ethical sponsorship.
Yeah.
So it's like, if people actually had this information more, like over time, you could start building a bit more of an understanding, rather than like, you know, coincidentally just stumbling across bits of knowledge and then that kind of going, oh, how does that make me feel about this?
Yeah.
How does that make me feel about this? Yeah, it's super interesting. I just think it's, I think I've gone a bit off topic from.
It's all right. All of these things are off topic. I think that everything's a starting point. And like, for instance, we could talk about the fact that we don't have energy security, and the fact that we don't have renewables means that the cost of energy for venues is one of the reasons venues are closing.
Absolutely.
Like, we could talk about the fact that artists don't like to speak up about things like climate crisis, because they think, oh well, our fans are just going to say that we travel around the world, and it's like,
absolutely, by planes.
As like my first conversation with Lewis that co-founded Music Declares Emergency was like, no, it's the fans that make all of the emissions, and it's poor public transport. So we could talk about the need for better local governance and the inability to travel home after some shows,
and the supporting. And I think that's as well for fans, it's like, you know, accessibility of options. You know, transport accounts, I think it's 76% potentially of emissions for a show, but you know, if you can't get a train home for a show and you have to get an Uber, then obviously that's going to be the case. And for artists, you know, if your fee for a show abroad, for example, or to even Scotland is 500 quid. Oh, can you play in Glasgow? Here's 500 quid. Trains are 150 each and you've got 5 of you.
Yeah.
But the flight's are 30 quid. Obviously you're going to fly, and your management will make that decision, because, you know, it's really hard, I think, to think in individual actions and not look at it as a systemic thing. And I think it's good that people are considering systemic, but I think social media sometimes allows people to micro in with these particular things. And I think that is why it's a bit of a fear, like the Colosseum of now, like, you know, you put yourself out there, it's a vulnerable position, and people can come back and be very, very aggressive and very opinionated. But I don't believe artists should stop using their voice because of that. I think we just need to support them in ways of storytelling and ways of, you know, also, I think, honesty. I love Phoebe from Lambrini Girls being on Hugh Stevens, just being like, yeah, this is the reality. I think also painting it, you know, it's not sexy. It's not like Mad Men cool. Like, maybe you're not living this glamorous rock and roll lifestyle, but if everyone has a bit more of an understanding of how the music industry is working, then maybe we can actually start to challenge these systemic issues that cause people to.
Were you reading our mission statement before coming in?
Oh no, is that?
Because that's literally, like, for me, like, people don't understand the value of something unless they understand the complexity behind it. This episode of the Drown in Sound podcast is presented in partnership with Qobuz, the platform that pays artists 4 times more than the industry standard, that has high quality audio, that has human curation, which as a human curator is something that I truly value over the kind of algo slop that you get on some platforms. You can really hear the difference. I know lots of places talk about the audio qualities, and as soon as I moved across, it sort of felt like I was rediscovering music, which is one of the platform's slogans. If you're worried about your playlists, you can use Soundiz. It's a really good tool that's part of the sign-up process when you join Qobuz. It just transfers everything across. If you'd like a free trial of this platform that's independently owned and made for music enthusiasts, head to drownedinsound.org/playlists, where you can hear not only our playlists, but get a free trial. You can also find these details in the show notes to this episode. And now back to this episode of the Drown in Sound podcast, brought to you in partnership with Qobuz. one of my big missions is to try and make music appreciation like we have for food. Like if the BBC had cookery programs, like we would have songwriting programs. Rather than just watching someone perform something, you would understand the cultural references and the history that's gone into the different genres and influences.
Absolutely.
And you'd understand what each synthesizer does, and and in doing so, when you hear something that's made by human beings, you'd have a sense of the skill involved to create the thing they've made, and you might value it differently or take the time to listen to what someone's done. And I think people that get into poetry suddenly have like a different level for like what they expect from like songs and poems and writing. And it's like, so I think that so much of what we see as music fans, like I've seen people go, oh, tickets over £20 are a rip-off. And it's like, no, like you said, like, there aren't, it's not like the train tickets are cheap. It's like,
it's difficult.
In fact, are you able to even tour by train? Have you like replaced your drummer with a drum machine so you can tour?
No, we still, you know, that's the thing. It's like, I'm even in the position I'm in, being, you know, high up in a kind of climate music charity. I still, in my band, can't necessarily implement sustainable changes because we're normally making a loss on everything. We don't have any money, never have any money, don't have tour support. Like it's hard graft.
One of my criticisms of the kind of carbon offset world is like, for one, they can't plant as many trees as people are buying. But for two, people could be building infrastructure. Like if you bought trucks which use renewable energy, and artists could then hire them for cheaper. Like that would instantly change the amount of emissions each van is letting out. I know that's small, but you would feel less guilty about getting in some like 15-year-old splitter van to drive around the country.
Absolutely. And often like with us, it's not even like the splitter van's too expensive. You know, we're just kind of carpooling. And then look at that. That's 3 cars doing 3 journeys, but that's the reality. And lots of opportunities, you know, that require you to move around the country, even live sessions and this and that. Like you don't get paid for those. So of course you're going to carpool or, you know, just try and find the cheapest possible way to do it. Like you're not going to be thinking, oh, you know, if I was sitting there in those conversations being, what about an electric van? Like, you know, I think I'd get laughed out the door, not because of malicious intent or a lack of care about the planet or, you know, our beautiful world. It's like, you know, we're looking at trying to make this minus number less of a minus number. We can't, you know, and then we can't be hiring this expensive new van that we had to find charging points for and all of this stuff.
And I think it's that thing of like the infrastructure is often like, and then there's economic justice and social justice attached to that, because like you can't charge someone that makes over 100 grand a year more for a ticket than someone that's on minimum wage. So all of the economics of everything is based on making it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. Which is why like ticket touting to me is such an awful, there's loads of people profiting from music. And I did a whole episode about it, so I won't dwell on it too much, but like the interconnectedness of all these different issues, which I guess my next question, which this leads into, is how did you end up going from being an artist that probably needed a second job to keep going? Because we all know, I've interviewed 101 part-time jobs. Giles talks to everyone about the jobs they do. Why did you decide that going to work at a kind of organisation like Music Declares was important to you?
So before I worked at Music Declares, I was very much in that part-time job lifestyle for the 8 years we've been doing PVA. I was working as a barista at a bar. I was a nanny. I was a waitress, you know, doing all of this stuff. But alongside, I ran and I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but we were called Group Therapy Collective. And during the lockdown, we released 2 compilations with, you know, on it now, Yard Act were on it, Mandy, Indiana, when they were called Gary, Indiana. Lots of familiar faces. Jerskin Fendrix did a track, Death Crash, lots. We had 60 on each compilation, and that And we were raising funds for Help Musicians, Black Minds Matter, Music Venue Trust. Our first compilation was more of a focus on the grassroots venue and the grassroots scene. And the second was on mental health, supporting mental health in music. And we ran some workshops alongside that to coincide on lots of things, like getting people into the music industry alongside The Root, who do like accessibility into the music industry. All of that to say, I loved doing that. And I did that, unpaid, and I loved it. And we ran events at the social and we were doing all of this work. And I just saw at this moment, this connection between music and activism, and I just couldn't quite shake it. And then went off and was working in a bar and doing this and doing that, and had a bit of a sense of disenchantment by the world, feeling really sad at the time because we were touring so much, and it just felt a bit like we couldn't do anything sustainably. Had a love for the natural world, had an awareness of the issues of the climate crisis and political injustice, but just felt a bit kind of lacking anything. Like I didn't know how to speak out. I didn't know how to be sustainable. I didn't know anything.
So one of the themes for this season of the podcast is around resilience, which it's almost like you knew what my questions were, because I was next going to ask you, is having that sense of purpose something that makes all of the awful stuff? Like I'm very purpose driven, and something that's to do with my neurodivergence. But like having a sense of all these things are bad, rather than feeling kind of like activated by it, actually feeling like you're able to contribute, even if it's a small incremental change. Do you think that helps? Like obviously you said you were raising money for mental health charities and things. Like, do you think it really helps to know that what you're doing is working towards something?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm a person with PTSD, so I think due to years of nervous system kind of spiking, and I think I was very aware of things that felt wrong.
We prescribed forest bathing.
No, I wasn't. I actually don't know what that is. Is that
it's a thing they prescribe people in Japan.
Oh, well, like kind of Wim Hof style.
No, it's like just go and sit in a forest and things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that nature is my remedy. I love being outdoors. I love it so much. I love gardening. Like, nature is my great healer, and has like saved my life in many ways. Growing up in London as well, so for context, not really ever having a connection to nature because I grew up in Hackney and then like moved to North London, and it was just like, we had a park that we all drank cans of beer in, and there wasn't really like big beautiful forests and all that. So I have fallen in love with it, especially touring, going around the UK and just seeing how beautiful the country is, and just being like, whoa, what the hell? Peak District, Lake District, Highlands, like, my God, this is Wales. Like, this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful land.
Parts of Wales are just unreal.
Yeah, magical as well. They've got magic in the land. Like, when you're at Green Man, you're like, literally, you're all connected to this.
Did you ever play Festival Number 6 in Port Merion?
No, I haven't played that one.
There's a drive.
There's loads of beautiful little ones that I still am yet to discover.
They stopped doing it after about 10 years, but there's part of the drive there. I was like, I didn't know like parts of Wales were proper knew about Brecon Beacons and things, but these were like full on like big alleys and
I climbed Penny Fan, and it was like which is the highest point in the Brecon Beacons, and it was like amazing experience up in the clouds. You're just like, wow. But I just, I didn't even think that those experiences were fun when I was a teenager, because I was just living in the city. Just like fun was being out with people, being social. But it wasn't like being in nature. I didn't really access that as like a healing thing until my 20s.
I was going to say, with the Hope Over Fear campaign and Another World is Possible, like there's a lot of discussion in the climate movement. I talked to Tori Choi on the podcast sort of about sort of doomerism and how that like people have gone from denial to doom, and like actually the thing that we need is people to envisage something bigger and better. To work towards something, you sort of have to envisage what it is, not what it isn't.
My brothers are 20 and they're always like, we're so cooked, and I'm just like, no, we're not. There's hope. Like, you gotta believe in something. And I feel like I'm really I used to always think of my brain as something that was against me, but now I really see it as something that's working with me, because I feel quite creative and I feel like I can create new ideas. That's something that I feel strongly about myself, and it's like, you know, and that's been so nice applying that to more like political activism and infrastructure conversations. And I'm so grateful for the team at MD, because I think they really give me space to bring in my kind of maybe more like music brain, but like apply it to the work we're doing, you know, looking at things like how can we use music marketing ideas to engage people in activism or like understanding of climate issues. And, you know, how can we, as an artist myself, like what experiences as an artist might inform how we approach artists. And we have that with Faye as well at MD, you know, amazing.
She was in the band Savages.
Savages, yeah.
Now Goddess.
Yeah, and she's amazing. And again, it's I think, and Lewis, you know, having his background in NR and PR, I think we're managing to kind of touch a lot of ground. And our community manager, Phoebe, is like an avid music fan as well. So it's been really nice to bring her into the mix and just, yeah, I think we've got a few different perspectives in the team and bringing in a lot of partners as well and other orgs who are, like we said, already kind of doing established work, I think is really important, you know.
So we've touched on the edges of you being in PVA, and this new record you've got, like, it's quite escapist. It's sort of a record about desire and kind of thinking about, like, it feels like it must be quite a nice release and escape, and like you've not gone, oh, I'm going to write a load of climate bangers because this is what I'm doing. Yeah. It's like the ability to actually go, okay, well, I make all these things in the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. Has that liberated you to make the music more what you want? The music, not that the first album was like this record or anything.
No, not at all. But I think we did a feature with The Quietists the other day, and we were having this conversation about political music and like self-reflective music, and I find it really hard to write. If you think about like all the different ways of music, there's like writing songs that are like, you know, emotional, kind of maybe more about me or like how, or like the character of me and like responding to the world and relationships between people. And then there's like, you know, the political bangers, and then there's like the experiential stuff like Shout Out Charlie, like let's go on my private jet and like let me sell you this lifestyle, it's a really cool lifestyle. And I think the conversation we were having was the political songs and the like lifestyle commodification songs. Quite easy to, I think, in this kind of new AI landscape, be turned into stuff. Yeah. But I think the thing about self-reflective music, emotional music, again, it's this kind of deeper magic, I think, that it's quite hard to, I think AI learning won't quite ever get the knack of. And I think that is the music that like deeply connects people to things. But like, you know, but like there's nothing like, you know, political bang, you know, there's nothing like a song like what song we and they do what they told you. Da, 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 and they do it. You know, like I wish, like I have a deep wish that one day I'll write a bagger that just like rouses people and wants them to like topple something. But I think
it is interesting, you know, though. You were talking about empathy at the start. Like Billie Eilish, like her music has a deep empathetic connection to her audience. Yeah. Which means when she does speak, she's built
this relationship. That's really
so
interesting point. I hadn't really thought about that.
Like I think that there's probably a lot of artists that don't feel like they have that depth of connection. Like if they feel like their fan base is fleeting, it might, in a weird way. Sorry, this is not meant to be psychoanalysis. But I think there is something about the artists that do speak up and do speak out. Mm-hmm. That are not necessarily doing it in their music. Yeah. Because I think it's sort of notable that the peril of the planet is such a huge existential topic. Absolutely. All of the music I love deals with these big existential, melancholic topics. And yet I can't think of a great song that's done for the climate movement, what punk songs did for social injustice
I don't think we necessarily have one, and maybe we don't need one.
Hi there, it's Emma here. I'm gatecrashing the podcast to quickly tell you about the Drowned in Sound newsletter. Every Wednesday, I invite myself into your inbox, with permission, of course, to share opinion writing and resources, tell you about cool things that you should be involved in within the world of music, activism, etc. I also bring track of the week and a little bit of hopeful news for you, because we all know that the news cycle can be grim at the best of times. Drowned in Sound newsletter every Wednesday in your inbox. Sign up now.
I have a theory, and I'd be curious what you make of my theory.
Yeah.
Is that Cassandra Jenkins making records about nature
Yeah.
probably does similar to what we were just talking about,
Yeah.
of making you feel in love and in awe of the natural world.
Absolutely.
Then activates you to want to protect it.
Absolutely. And I think building visual worlds as well. Building it into campaign visuals, building the natural world, building sampling, using nature as an instrument, as Earth% have been working on doing, but also loads of people do. And it's also one of the kind of traits of some of my favorite, Japanese ambient musicians, like bringing that into it, years and years and years ago. And I think that's kind of, recognizing the connection between music and nature, but I just think doing so, implicitly, is that the word? Like, yeah. Kind of low key, like that NTS Blood Orange, doing some gardening. Love that. Like, let's do more interviews.
One was so lovely.
Yeah, let's just do more content like that. Like, let's just get people in these spaces rather than talking about gotta save these spaces. It's really, really urgent. It's just like, okay, just go show people enjoying them. And give people across, like I said, I didn't feel like I had an access to nature growing up because I didn't really know that was something that could make me feel good, because we had some London parks, like North London little parks that,
one of the
were
episodes,
just shot in weed in and stuff, you know what I mean? So it's just like...
One of the episodes we did last year was about purpose disruptors. Yeah. And they did a radio show from the Walthamstow wetlands, doing bird watching whilst making a radio show, and the radio show itself is...
No More Like This is majorly inspired by Walthamstow wetlands, because I used to go on like a 3-hour walk there every single day when I lived in Stamford Hill, which is when we were writing this album. Yeah, that place has got magic, I think. Do you know Jock McFarland, the painter?
No.
He paints like wetlands, like London scenes. He also paints a lot of the East Coast, like kind of Whitstable and stuff, kind of a bit Turner vibes. But he's got these amazing paintings of like Canary Wharf and like kind of a lot of the East End and the wetlands. And it's like, these skyscrapers in the background. You got these and they're amazing. They're so good. He did an exhibition at the RA that I went to see kind of around the time we were writing the album. And I just, it's that kind of, when you just see nature in its sort of raw form in London, it's so magical because it's such a juxtaposition. And I think, more about those spaces and getting more people there as well is really important, and getting more people to experience that kind of magic. And I actually got when I went to Green Man for the first time, that was like the first time I think I'd gone to Wales, potentially, like that I remembered. And I was like 22, and we woke, and we were just like excited. We were playing our first ever festival, got the beers in, having a lovely time, coming from London, party. And then you just wake up and you're like in the Brecon Beacons, and you're just like, whoa. And it's just like, it was this feeling of like, okay. And you burn the Green Man, you're like, oh wow, and it's like that, that's core memory for me. And that's like one of the ways I fell in love with nature. And that is because we got the opportunity as a Grassroots band to play the rising stage of a festival, and they paid us enough that we could make it there. And we, all of this stuff. So it's like, maybe I wouldn't have been writing about nature as much, or maybe I wouldn't have been kind of trying to combine the music and the activism as much if it wasn't for those kind of early experiences where you get to travel and see that kind of stuff.
It's interesting because I was listening to the record trying to not overanalyze the lyrics, but try and work out where your other hat lies. And it's interesting then when you're talking about kind of people creating art of nature. And I think some of what we were talking about earlier about empathy, and it's like how human a lot of what you write about is like, we need to protect humans and the planet. And I wonder if, in a way, the more in which you can make people, because I love the way in which, like, even at the most loud points of some of your tracks, you're often quite quiet speaking. And like, you really have to tune in to you. And it's quite a, like, your brain's oscillating between, should I be dancing or listening?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like
and I love
like that.
And I love loads of like speaking songs, or however people talk about them. And I'll probably link to a playlist underneath this episode, because I made a playlist a few years ago, and it was just like,
what is it called? Sprechgang.
yeah.
Yeah. I always saw that word and I was like, what is that word?
And I think that there's something in the storytelling and all of those things, all about what makes us human. And yeah, it's such a special record, and I hope that people from listening to you will get a sense of like what they might be in for. And I don't want to, normally when you interview an artist, you go quite deep into like, let's take the record apart and let's reconstruct it for people. We've been talking for a while, and I sent you a couple of quite big questions.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we have time for them.
Yeah.
So the question I ask all my guests is, if you had 500 million pounds, how would you spend it to fix some of the things we've been talking about?
Okay, so I would split it into two 250 millipots.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got our 250 millipots. One side, grassroots venues, community owned, or like, you know, they own their venues, like buying off all the landlords, all of that stuff. Immediately, like, yeah, give that money to like Save Our Venues, you know, Music Venue Trust. They're kind of, because I believe so deeply that we need a thriving grassroots scene across the country to bring in like a diverse range of voices into music. It's like, there's just, I'm only starting to, you know, you go into the music and this is no shade to anyone that's come from there, but there's so many people who are like privately educated and who can afford to you know, survive and take the grind, because you make no money off of music. And Phoebe was talking about this in her Six Music with Hugh. But
Lambrini Girls.
Yeah, from Lambrini Girls. And it's really, really stark when you start actually seeing it painted out like that. And then you start kind of going back. And I'm sure if you actually go back into, you know, it's always been the way with music. And I'm sure because...
Well, I think there was a point when I first got into music where major record companies there was tour support, which is basically a loan from your record deal to cover the costs of investing in tour.
Like we didn't have tour support even for the Blush tour or for the US tour or anything, so we were making losses on all of those.
But I think grassroots venues could kind of have a fee that made sense for them and made sense for the artist, and then a lot of the costs were picked up by someone else. So you could be a working class person signing a record deal, having some money in the bank, and have the record company invest in your touring.
Absolutely.
We now have a booming live industry, and yet it's sort of down to the artists and the managers to invest up to a point in their touring and their careers.
And just getting some stuff like at the grassroots venues, like there's rooms, there's lodging. In Europe, that's a really big thing. Like in the Netherlands, if you play a show, they'll like put you up in this amazing like place on the venue that like, and it's great, and you save so much money. And just having, and like catering facilities, like a kitchen, so you can just like not eating out every single night, like all of this stuff. These small things like greatly reduce the cost of a tour and make you close to breaking even more quickly. So we just need to invest in that stuff happening in the venues. And then my second 250 milli, again, I think it's quite a similar thing, would be looking at a sort of easy to access grant for artists and artist teams for kind of touring within the UK. Again, it's this idea of touring within the UK because we have the amazing, like, you know, there's lots of grants, PRS, PPL, Momentum Fund, MEGS with BPI for international touring. There are ways of accessing big money for, I need to record an album or anything, but you know, it's hard to get. We've got MEGS once, we've never got PRS grants or anything like that. So it is hard to access.
There's often thousands of people applying.
Yeah.
I applied,
especially in London, you know.
Yeah, and I applied for like an arts council thing, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we've had like 3,000 entries for 15 grants."
Yeah, it's hard, and sometimes you get lucky, and obviously keep trying. But you know, I think everyone should keep trying because it's like everyone there's no hierarchy of who deserves funding. It's just, it's just if you get lucky and if you've got a strong grant writer, if you at right place, right time kind of thing. But, in lockdown, help musicians, you could just apply for 500 quid. No questions asked really, as long as you were like a musician. And I think more kind of stuff like that, it's like, oh, we've been offered this opportunity in Glasgow, but we need to drive up, or we need to make it a tour, or oh, we need to do rehearsals, or we need to do this. It's more of like a kind of like a mutual aid fund for musicians to kind of start off their careers and get going to the point of maybe then they're kind of getting to the point where they're signed, they have tour support and all of that stuff. But it's that kind of pre-sign time, I think, would be really, really important, and so many bands I know have stopped. So many good artists have stopped because they just couldn't make it work financially, and they kind of just lost the fight. We're so resilient, like cockroaches almost. I think we just keep going because we believe in what we're doing, but we've taken some big knocks and we haven't really made any money off the band for a long time. And
you also started when we were in lockdown, didn't you? It's like,
well, yeah, we started
sort of did starting to get a footing, and then
that is,
and then
we had South by Southwest. Then we were going to tour Japan, and then we were going to tour with Baxter Jury, and then do like a UK EU tour at the end of the year. And then it was South by Southwest got cancelled, Japan got cancelled, Baxter got cancelled, and then it was just lockdown for 2 years. So
you must be excited to have another record coming now, because this
feels like a second chance.
Yeah,
feels like a second chance. Feel like there's a bit new energy. It's a different sound. We feel different. We feel more mature. We feel more assured.
Yeah.
And just feeling really, really excited. I hope people like it.
So, quick summary of this conversation then. Merch, like, I wanted to get into the remill stuff because I think that was quite interesting. Like, that's one way artists can make a difference.
Yeah.
Like how they approach their shows, like funding the grassroots so that people have got maybe a bit more money and bandwidth to think about the changes they can make.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we should underscore for people? The little things that both artists and fans can do.
Yeah. So I think supporting the grassroots scene, and always like supporting artists, buying their music on Bandcamp, maybe kind of finding creative ways to uplift artists' voices, because if artists are sustained in their careers, then they can make these more sustainable choices, and then also develop and build their kind of political voices as well through experience making those changes. So just supporting artists. If you love an artist, it makes such a difference to even get someone buy your album on Bandcamp digitally, Bandcamp Friday. It does for us. Like we make a lot of our income through that, and
well, not even income, it's you balance out.
Well, we don't lose as much money, but it's important, and I always try and do it as well. And buying merch when you go to shows and all of that stuff, and just kind of trying to show up for artists and support them, and don't just comment negativity, don't just critique, comment positivity as well. If you see something that's good, comment that's good. Like, try and balance out your critiquing commentary to your positive commentary, and try and build a more empathetic lens to view the world, hopefully.
Save your nastiness for the fascists that deserve.
Yeah, exactly. Stick that in Reform's comments.
Take that rage, copy and paste it. So this is the first episode I've recorded since all the world went crazy over Christmas and the start of this year. And to me, a lot of what I'm seeing is oil for energy, natural resources to power things like AI, and memory cards, which I'm using right now to record this episode, to power all the data servers, all those kind of things. We talked about climate, and obviously technology is a part of that. And AI is obviously a huge new thing. And then we've got humanity and empathy and all the ways in which, like, no AI, I don't think, could make a song like Push, because it's such a extraordinary sonic landscape. And then to put the words that you have to it, like, it's just like, that's something that only humans can do. What do you think that this moment tells us about where the world is headed, and what we need to be pushing gently back against? Not to pun intentionally on the word push there.
So I think the thing with music, And I think maybe we're losing it a little bit in music, and I'll touch upon that. But there is such a deep empathy and relationship between the listener and the artist, because for someone to talk so emotionally through their music, and for you to hear it, and for you to think about your own experience and move to it and be part of it, that is such an empathetic relationship. And I think an issue maybe with music a bit more at the moment is we're pushing experiences, we're pushing VIP experiences, luxury experiences, and this is, you know, part of branding, and this is part of, you know, building a lifestyle brand around your artistry, and it's a big thing with social media and with artists. But I think that's much more easy to be replicated by AI learning. And I think, you know, we could end up in this kind of world where it becomes, so indistinguishable between the music that's on, artist made and the music that's AI made, because they're all just like, I'm doing this and this is what's happening and I bought this and this makes me feel like this when I do this. And I think sometimes human music is when you go into that intangible, when you go into that poetry of life, when you go into the small moments that don't make sense, but they just make you feel like that is sometimes what is so magic in music. And I think we need to, as an industry, platform and programming and more opportunities for that kind of music to permeate and reach more people. Or, as much as, these big kind of artists who are like, pop stars who are like, and my life's amazing and look, I'm doing this and this is all this. It's just like, it's a dangerous game if we don't show a 360 spectrum of...
Or a 365 spectrum.
Or a 365. Although I'm really curious to see the moment, because again, I think it's interesting with her artistry, like how she's starting to build in these, this thing. But and I think it's quite intentional, but I do worry because it's so popular, then it just becomes the norm, and then some people don't necessarily get that kind of creative, direction and complexity, and it's very like 2D, and then we have a whole industry where it's just like, look at me, I'm a hot girl, and this is this, and this is this, and then we're back in the 2000s.
To be fair, like... by touring with backing track, she's saving some money on taking bodies around the world.
Exactly.
So we're talking about Charlie XCX for anyone that's a bit lost.
Yeah. No, I think, and I love Charlie and I love PC music so much, and it was such a big inspiration. I'm just really worried now that it's going to be so easy for like all AI to just sound like, like auto-tuned vocals, hyper poppy, and that's fine. Like, if AI music is going to be like that, I'm sure it still won't have the complexity, nuance, and human understanding and experimental kind of nature of the PC music crew, like, and like, Sophie and like Charlie and like AG. Like, it's never going to be like that. But I think the music industry doesn't necessarily notice that complexity in that music and notice that. They just see it as, oh, people like this. Okay, let's put money, and then AI, and then, Warner AI, like, and then all of a sudden it's just kind of more kind of, low quality, and you just hear it in the cafes, and it's just like,
trained on non-consensual copyrights.
So exactly. So I just think, I loved with our album, it just felt really human, and the process was really human and really vulnerable. And even if it's not permeating and popping off and viral moments, like, I'm just really proud of it. And I think more people, I hope, feel empowered to kind of make their weird music and do their weird thing, because, I was chatting to the dry cleaning lot, and it's like, just keep doing your thing. Just keep doing your thing, because it's sick, and it's just like, who cares if our reels aren't booming? Who cares? Like, let's just keep doing our thing, because it's going to connect with people, and that's the important thing. That is the thing about music. So
depth, not breadth.
Yeah, I like that. Exactly.
That's the end. I really loved that chat with Ella. She was everything I expected her to be, having swapped some emails with her in the past and listening to her records. There's something about an artist who has so much empathy and channels that into a mission and decided to get involved in something like the climate movement. I love the fact that Green Man was sort of what radicalized her, or was like her origin story of getting involved in things. I love that so many of the different topics we talked about were really hopeful and not just to people in the doom spiral of how bad the world is. That episode was recorded a little bit earlier in January, so the PVA album is actually out now. So, yes, and go listen to the song Send, not Push, as I think I said in the podcast. Yeah, Send is extraordinary. So, if you haven't listened to PVA before, start there and then get into the rest of the catalogue. There's a couple of records, and they are doing lots of live shows in amazing grassroots venues. So, make sure you try and catch them live. So, having said all that, I think the Hope Over Fear campaign is a pretty amazing thing. I was really thrilled to be asked to be part of it by wearing some of the merch when they launched. I was alongside people like Idols, the Anchoress who I managed took part. There was so many artists that just off the top of my head I would struggle to list them all, because loads and loads of great musicians have taken part in this campaign. I got the Another World Is Possible t-shirt, which is great. And I sometimes wear it underneath my No Music on a Dead Planet jumper, which if you watch this podcast on YouTube, you may have seen me wearing quite a few times because it's a nice fit. And it's just about right when you're sitting in a very bright studio, not to get too overheated and too cold. Anyway, is that TMI? Isn't that what the end of podcasts are for? This is the bit where you actually get to know a little bit about me and what makes me tick. So yeah, there was a few other things that I thought were really interesting. The action hubs are obviously just going to be these great spaces to bring people together in brilliant grassroots venues. And that's definitely very up my street. And I was thinking a lot about the different organizing I've done over the last few years, and most of it's been through WhatsApp and Zoom calls, and how different it's been when we have had in real world meetings, IRL, as the internet jargon goes. And I think that something changes when you're in that close proximity. The types of conversations you have are not being asynchronous, or not being it's your turn to speak on a Zoom call, can often be quite different. Obviously, with some Noro spicy brains, they can start to go all over the place and off topic. But sometimes those places where you go off topic is where you find maybe something that's outside of the perceived or received wisdom of what you're doing and why you're doing it. I also think that there's a lot to be said for getting to know someone and how they got involved in things and why they're involved in things. So there's definitely something really powerful that happens when you bring people together who maybe have a shared goal, or maybe just have, and if that shared goal is to stop reform, or I know that Music Declares is a charity, so they're not, it's up to the people that come to the hubs, I think, to decide what they're doing. But I think in a time where it's hard to find hope, giving people projects that are able to address some of the systemic issues we've got, if those people want to come together and look at ways in which our political system could do with some pressure being applied to it by people who care, then I think that's going to be really powerful. But equally, organizing isn't just about trying to address things with the institutions that are out there. Some of it can be actually going and doing things like planting food for food banks. It could be finding ways in which you can do lift shares so that more people can go to more events. I think there's lots of different things that organizers are going to find these hubs are going to be useful for. So I'm really grateful to Music Declares Emergency for starting this project. And if you click in the show notes, go grab yourself one of the t-shirts and let me know which one you got, or jumpers. Because they got some great merch. I think if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you'll know that what we're all about is trying to help you as music fans find your collective power. And in that, it might sound grandiose, but really as a fan, you have some power on your own. But collectively, we're able to do lots and lots of different things. And I hope that the artists listening to this really think about taking those 30 seconds to a minute on stage to make a small difference to what fans are focused on and thinking about. And I think that as fans, making the decision to take the bus instead of a cab, or not driving if the train is an option, can make a big difference, because if we all make that difference when we go to a show, then that adds up, and that show itself has not produced as much carbon. The artists themselves are just one car. If there's 1,000 of us in our cars, that's obviously going to be much worse. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about pushing your mayors and local authorities and MPs to ensure that your public transport does allow you to go to shows. And the nighttime economy is really crucial. As you would have heard in the episode that we did with Tom Keel, like, our soft power in exporting music is really crucial. So I think that that's really key. If this is your first time listening, by the way, we've done a few recent episodes about the climate crisis, climate change, but I actually like to think of them as being episodes about nature and how we protect it and why we should protect it. If you go back to my interview with Tori Choi, I think that's a really great foundational conversation about where the music industry is situated in the climate movement, the climate justice movement. Then there's the episode I put out on New Year's Day, which was designed for you to take on a little walk in your local woods or park or beach or wherever whatever nature you're lucky enough to be near. And I do speak to the RSPB in that episode, as well as the organisers of this brilliant event in Manchester Museum, which is the Natural History Museum, all about music's role in the climate justice movement. There's a few other episodes that you could dip into, but maybe most relevant to this episode, it was my recent chat with Giles Bidder from 101 Part-Time Jobs, because obviously a lot of what Ella's talked about in that is about the economics of touring and the changes that can be made. Right, that's enough waffling from me, I think. So yeah, go listen to the PVA album and head to drowningsound.org/playlists to listen to our Speaking Songs playlist, because I've spent ages putting it together and I think there's some amazing stuff on there. And if you don't come away from that playlist with discovering a new artist that you absolutely adore, I will be shocked. Most of the tracks are a few years old. Some of them are much, much older, like Laurie Anderson. But I think there's just generally something special in the kind of half spoken, half sung, the almost rapped kind of spoken poet kind of approach to making music. It's something the PVA do wonderfully, and it really inspired this week's playlist, which you can also get a 30-day free trial to our partners Cobuzz when you go grab the playlist and listen to it over there. I've been Sean Adams. This has been the Drown in Sound podcast. You've been you, and I'll see you next time.